Welcome, and thank you for joining this today's MIT Sloan MBA information session. My name is Tommaso Canetta. I'm the Associate Director of Diversity Recruiting and Admissions here at MIT Sloan, and I'm thrilled to see over 250 of you joining us for today's information session. I'm joined this morning by a couple of my colleagues from the admissions staff, Ann Connors and Reed Swain, who will be helping out with the Q&A and everything on the back end. I'm also joined by several of our current students who we'll be introducing shortly, who will be answering your questions on today's panel. If you do have any questions today for our student panelists, please use the Q&A function to submit those questions. You'll also be able to upvote and see questions that have already been asked, so you can just upvote those questions if they are questions that you would like to see answered. And we will do our best to get to as many of those questions as we can over the next hour or so that we have together. But I want to start off just with a little bit of getting to know who we have in our audience. So we are going to launch a poll here. We'd love to know, we know many of you are at different stages of the application process. So if you see that poll and could respond there so we get a sense of who we have in our audience, and we'll share those results in just a moment. But I want to start off again by just introducing you to MIT Sloan and the MBA program before we get into our panel discussion. I start off all of my information sessions by reflecting on the mission statement of MIT Sloan, and that is to develop principled and innovative leaders who will improve the world and to generate ideas that advance management practice. My hope is that through our conversation today, through hearing from our students, you really get an opportunity to see how mission-driven MIT Sloan is, how our students, how our faculty, how our staff live out the mission of the Sloan School of Management every day, both in the classroom as well as outside of the classroom. Today we'll focus on the MBA and LGO programs. As you can see, or as I can see, for many of you, you're planning to apply in the next application cycle. So we're excited to see you all learning about Sloan today. Sloan offers a portfolio of programs, of master's degree programs, depending on where you are, at what stage of your career, from early career all the way to mid-career. Again, today we'll focus on our MBA and LGO programs. Our MBA is our 2-year full-time program, typically has students who have about 5 years of working experience who join that program. We'll also talk about our LGO program, which is a dual degree program where you do earn your MBA as well as a master's in engineering from one of 7 engineering programs at MIT. I know we have a student panelist from the LGO program, so he'll be able to share a little bit about that experience. I know there also may be some of you who are interested in our MBA early admission, our deferred admission program. So for college seniors or those who are finishing up their undergraduate or graduate studies without having had any full-time work experience yet, that is an option to apply to MIT Sloan's MBA program and then defer your admission for 2 to 5 years to get that full-time work experience before joining the program. So these are the programs we'll focus on today in our conversation. Within the portfolio of programs, within the MBA degree, there is a tremendous amount of flexibility to the curriculum that allows you to really tailor that experience to your interests and the areas that you want to focus on. There are opportunities for innovative hands-on learning through our action learning labs and through opportunities for project-based learning that our students will share today. You have access in our program to world-renowned faculty who are incredibly accessible to our students, who have who are great mentors and are really great resources for our students throughout their experience. You have access to not just the MIT Sloan experience, but the broader MIT experience. There are opportunities to collaborate and engage with other schools across MIT, students in other departments. That cross-campus collaboration is an incredible opportunity for students to really understand different things that they're learning from so many different perspectives. You have a dynamic, student life and campus life experience, both at Sloan through over 70 different clubs and organizations, through a number of student-led conferences, through programming, you have opportunities to build community, you have opportunities to gain leadership experience over the course of your MBA experience. And all of that we know will help lead you towards rewarding careers. You have a supportive career development office with lots of resources over the course of the program, even starting in the summer before you come to campus to get you started on that career journey. You have career advisors, you have core fellows, which are peer mentors. So we'll talk a little bit about the ways that MIT Sloan supports you in your career search. And you have, as part of that, you become a member of a powerful network of alumni, both from MIT Sloan as well as broader MIT, an alumni network that numbers over 130,000 alumni all over the world. And an alumni network that is incredibly powerful in terms of where our alums are working, the impact they're having on organizations, on launching their own organizations, again, all over the world. And leadership, again, I touched on this a little bit as I was talking about student life, but integrated leadership development, opportunities throughout the curriculum, both in the classroom as well as outside of the classroom, to develop those leadership skills that we know you're looking to an MBA as one of many reasons to pursue your MBA. So I hope that our discussion throughout our student panel today will allow us to dig deeper on some of these topics. So if you have questions about these topics, I encourage you to again, ask them through the Q&A. After our student panel, we will discuss the admissions process. So if you do have those admissions questions, I will address them a little bit later, so you can hold on to those for the time being. But with that, I do want to introduce our amazing student panelists. So I will ask you each just to introduce yourselves, to tell us what program you're in, tell us a little bit about what you were doing prior to Sloan, and what you'll be up to this summer, whether it's your internship or whether you've just graduated, and maybe just share a couple of activities or things that you've been involved with at MIT Sloan. So we'll start with Harry, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. My name's Harry Birnbaum. I am in the LGO program. I am halfway through, I guess, at this point. So what do I say? What I'm doing this summer, so for the LGO program, you have to do, part of that is doing a 6-month internship. Basically, you need to write a thesis as part of your engineering master's. So in order to have enough content to do that, that's sort of the logic behind the 6-month internship. So I'm halfway through my internship right now. I'm actually calling from a plant in Beverly, West Virginia, where I'm working on trying to cut down on, it's a hardwood flooring plant, and I'm trying to cut down on the wasted material they use the wasted wood while producing flooring. So that's my project right now. What I did before MIT was I worked at a software company. I studied math, and I worked at a software company where we did truck route optimization. So kind of planning trips to vendors, to distribution centers, to stores, and just optimizing that with our software. So my background's sort of in mathematical optimization and supply chain logistics. So that's what I've been working on at MIT. I'm involved with the LGO Student Life Organization. I am involved with the soccer club, the Sloan Soccer Club. Yeah, I guess that pretty much sums me up.
Great, thank you, Harry. And Della, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Della. I'm a rising second year, which is definitely weird to say. Before Sloan, I was in DC working in the public sector doing international development work. So came to Sloan to kind of pivot to some private sector work and work in sustainability. So this summer I'll be with a startup in Santa Barbara, although I'll be in Massachusetts, but it's a Santa Barbara based startup called Appeal Sciences, which is looking to combat food waste. They have an edible coating that helps keep the shelf life of your fruits and vegetables, which we all could probably use right about now in various forms of quarantine. But I'll be a sustainability intern for them for the summer. At Sloan, I've been involved in a lot of sustainability related clubs and activities and classes, so happy to talk about that. I was part of actually with Enna, we were part of the planning team for the Sustainability Summit, which is now moved to the fall, so we're still planning that. I did a Patagonia case competition looking at reducing textile waste, and my team is we're finalists, so we're actually pitching that in the next couple of weeks virtually. And I'm a vice president of the Sloan Women in Management Club, SWIM.
Great, thank you, Della. Emma, welcome. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Everyone, good morning. I'm Emma Ho. Before Sloan, I was working in auditing and investment banking in Hong Kong. And here as well, I did finance track, analytics certificate, and also operation lab. And I was also the vice president of the infrastructure and finance club. And I just graduated a week ago, so now I am alum. And I will pivot to consulting and will be working here in Boston this autumn.
Great, thank you, Emma. And last but not least, Anna, welcome.
Thanks, Tommaso. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Aina Uru. I'm midway through my first and second year. I'm a physician by background, but I've predominantly worked in global health. Before I came to Sloan, I worked in Geneva, Switzerland at the World Health Organization. I was on their infectious diseases programs, supporting mostly emerging economies with mechanisms to improve access to novel medicines. I'll be spending, or I've actually started my internship. I'm spending the summer, sorry for the background noise, there's some construction, but I'll be spending the summer at a pharmaceutical company called Eli Lilly. I'm also scheduled to do a fellowship at part of the Gates Foundation later on. In terms of my time at Sloan, I've mostly been involved with the student government known as the Senate, and also the Black Business Students Association, the Africa Business Club, the Healthcare Club, and like Della mentioned, a bit of the sustainability work as pertains to the summit that's upcoming later in the year. Pleasure to meet you all and welcome again.
Great, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to turn off the slides here so we can see all of our panelists a little bit better. So let's dive into some of our questions, and thank you to all of you who have been submitting questions for our students. For those who are attending today's webinar, they're deciding about where to apply, and as we saw at different stages of the application process. But maybe we can start off by just reflecting a little bit on what made you choose MIT. What was I'm sure there were many factors, of course, but maybe if you could each kind of point to one particular factor that really drew you to choosing MIT. And we'll start with Anna, please.
Sorry, once again, if there's some noise, just bear with me. MIT, stuck out to me mostly because I was working at an organization that dealt with global health, and I constantly was trying to explore what the future of healthcare looked like. For those who may not know, MIT has a very strong link and history with the life sciences sector in a sector that develops and discovers new therapies. And I thought that by being here, I would have the opportunity to be exposed. It's in a location called Kendall Square, if you haven't been, in Cambridge, where as a student, you have the opportunity to interact with a lot of these companies, and also the faculty within Sloan, and I'd actually say outside Sloan, are also involved in this industry. So I think in terms of just perspective, understanding the sector I wanted to get involved with, MIT struck out pretty largely. I'd stop there and see if others have any other perspectives, because I could talk on for maybe a few minutes.
Great, thanks. And Emma, do you want to share a little bit about why you chose to come to MIT Sloan?
Yes, sure. Can you hear me clearly? I was trying
Yes.
to adjust my mic. Sorry about that.
think we lost you, Emma, but we'll have Della jump in here, and maybe you could share a little bit about why you chose MIT Sloan.
Sure. So this is a tough question to just pick one reason, but I think sort of similar to Enna, I think Sloan really aligned with my career goals, and coming from the public sector and being so immersed in social impact issues and having such a global focus to my career before Sloan, those were really important to me to be features of the business school I attended. So I wanted to be with a really diverse class. Sloan has sort of unparalleled, especially international diversity. So that made me feel really excited that it was going to be similar to my previous experience. And I think the commitment, both in terms of the sustainability initiative and like the classes around that, but also at the broader MIT Sloan level to impact and innovation around social impact and sustainability issues. That's kind of what drove me to the school.
Great, thank you. And Harry, obviously, LGO is a unique program offering, the opportunity to do the dual degree. Talk a little bit about, why you chose to pursue a dual degree program.
So I was committed to trying to pursue a dual degree. I had been working in a job that sort of it was sort of like a PM role for the software company. So it sort of let me straddle the line between getting my hands dirty and some technical stuff, but also facing the customer and worrying about the business side of things. And I really liked getting both, and I wanted to move forward in my career without having to sacrifice either. So that's why I wanted to do a dual degree, and I applied to quite a few, and MIT's seemed the best to me. First of all, just because obviously the business or the engineering school and the business school both have great reputations. It's hard to find both at once. And on top of that, with the other programs, a couple other schools of programs, probably not as well publicized, but a lot of them are just kind of opportunities to double count credits and just kind of attract to do it. And it's not really a cohesive program where you have a cohort who you're sort of in it together. And MIT LGO has that, which is kind of nice because you've got a little bit different experience at some points, and it's nice to have a group that you can sort of lean on. You can go to the second years and be like, hey, what classes did you take? Would you recommend trying to do these both at the same time? You got like you got a crew you're doing it with, which was a nice feature that I didn't find elsewhere. And on a less LGO related side, I said my background's math. I'm not really good with I'm just like quantitative, structured, formalized things. And I feel like in a lot of the sort of softer topics like communications or operation structures, I feel like the curriculum does a good job of trying to make it as analytic as possible. And for someone like me who can sort of struggle in that area, they do a good job of, I mean, you can only do so much, but they do a good job of coming up with sort of frameworks to as a way of introducing all these things. And I thought that sort of approach to learning was good for me.
Great, thanks. Emma, do you want to see if your audio is working now?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Actually, I totally resonate with what other panelists have said just now. And personally, I think one key factor is that people here at Sloan are super collaborative. I heard about that a lot when I chatted before other alums before I decided to come here to Sloan. And after I came here, I realized that's like totally true. So I've been learning so much in the past 2 years from my interactions with my fellow Sloanies, and they are all very talented, but at the same time, everyone is very humble, and they are really trying to help each other to grow. So we will let other know like how we can help in terms of recruiting. And also me as an international student, I struggle a little bit at the beginning how to blend in and understand more about the US culture. And I had like tons of help from my fellow students in my core team and also my oceans. So I would say collaboration is really, really important here at Sloan.
Great. Thank you, Emma. So we have a couple questions about social impact and what sort of offerings MIT Sloan has around the social impact sector. What sort of resources are for those interested in areas like social innovation or social entrepreneurship. So Della, maybe you could start us off here by talking a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Sure, happy to. I think one thing I always tell prospective students when I'm speaking to them is there may not be as much on the website or in the classes of things like social impact, social innovation. It all at Sloan falls under the umbrella of sustainability. So I know that's a bit confusing because sustainability is kind of a loaded term, but it's not just environmental sustainability at Sloan. That encompasses things like labor rights issues or like workplace dynamics, basically like anything that you would kind of put under the umbrella of corporate social responsibility, social innovation. So definitely look out for things sort of labeled sustainability. So I think in terms of specific things, the sort of flagship class for social impact and sustainability is S-Lab, the Sustainability Lab. That's in the spring semester, and it's an action learning lab, like Tommaso was alluding to. Basically, you consult with a company through the whole semester, and you also have lectures that are about various topics in sustainability. So that was an amazing experience. It's a really popular class. There were, I think, over 100 students in it, including some executive MBAs, which was really cool to learn from them as well, because those are people way further along in their career than the traditional MBA students. So that was definitely a great experience. And there's a lot of electives as well that I look forward to taking next year. But I think it's also about the student groups and the clubs. So we have a net impact group on campus, but that's sort of a broad impact minded group of students. But there's also really specific student groups to different impact areas, like a food and agriculture club, impact investing club. And those have great even hands-on learning opportunities for students. So there's a ton going on. It really depends on the impact area you're interested in, but it's an exciting time for social impact on campus.
Great, thank you, Della. Did anyone want to add on to that? All right. We had a question about the tracks. So at MIT Sloan, within the curriculum, you have the option to choose tracks, either finance, entrepreneurship and innovation, or enterprise management, as a way to structure your elective choices. Serves as a little bit of a guide for you in choosing your courses. Can also be a great way to signal to recruiters a focus in a particular area within the MBA, as well as to sort of give you access to a cohort of peers with similar interests. So Emma, I know you pursued the finance track. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose to pursue the track and what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, sure. I did it because I had some finance background and I would like to advance my network here in the US in the finance industry. So I really like the finance track because it actually gathers a group of fellow students who share the same aspiration. And in the core semester, we'll have a finance track seminar each week. So all the famous industry practitioners from different investment bank, investment management firm, PVC, who are usually Sloan alum, will be like introduced to us in the classroom, and they will share their real life work experience and how they actually broke into that industry before. So it's a really great chance to connect to those industry practitioners and also get a better understanding of how the finance industry nowadays is. And also, I think I gained a lot from pursuing those coursework listed in the finance track, such as M&A, which is a great class, and also advanced corporate finance. We have a lot of great faculty here at Sloan that help us to, further polish our skills. So that's why I did it, and I really enjoyed it.
Great, thank you, Emma. So we have quite a few questions about the culture at MIT Sloan, which are, of course, great questions for our students to talk a little bit about. As you think about the culture at MIT Sloan, maybe Harry, you can start us off. How would you describe the culture at Sloan?
Well, I was sort of when there's that social impact question. I'm not involved with any like social impact groups or classes, but I would say that I feel like the student body is very social impact minded, and most of the touch points I've had with that side of things has just been by student oriented initiatives and just reaching out to their classmates. And so that's one thing I'd throw out there as a continuation of that. I think one of the reason I picked Sloan is because based on my admit weekends at other places, it seemed like Sloan was going to be like a bit more nerdy and studious, and that's kind of what I wanted. I sort of wanted to just like stay inside and work a lot, and it sort of hasn't been that. So like I feel like people are more social and than I thought. So maybe that's indicative of sort of being able to straddle that line between kind of nerdy and liking to go out. But I think it's nice because there's sort of a niche for everyone. Also in culture, I'd say there's definitely a big sort of startup and entrepreneurship culture. Like there's all these different pitch competitions, and people love to get involved with them. And there's all these hackathons. There's this big hack culture at MIT. So it's just like you basically, I haven't done one that was called officially a hackathon, but I did something that was like an operations simulation competition. And you just like basically spend 48 hours just kind of with a group of your close friends, just like plugging away at like sort of for us, it was a simulation of running a business in a factory. And I sort of assumed that's what a hackathon's kind of like, just spending like a weekend working really hard on one sort of academic challenge. But I feel like that was just what I did for fun one weekend. Of course, it was during quarantine, so my options were a little limited. But like I just was Zooming with my friends doing like this nerdy operations challenge for fun all weekend. And like I'm glad that all my friends are the kind of people who I can go out and like go drinking with one weekend, and then the next weekend I can stay inside and do this weird challenge all weekend, and it's just as fun for us, and we have just a good time.
Great, thank you, Harry. Along sort of the same lines around culture, Anna, can you talk a little bit about, what is there a type of student that you feel is a particularly good fit for Sloan or not a good fit for Sloan?
Thanks for that question. So a fit for Sloan, you would feel at home here if you have a can-do attitude, if you think, whatever it is you want to do, however non-mainstream it is, whatever your passion is, and you think you want to use your voice on a personal level, on a professional level, you would find that support here. If you've engaged with Sloan beforehand, one of the things you constantly hear is about how collaborative it is, how supportive it is. You'd feel at home here if you're willing to learn, and if you're open-minded. You would definitely, when you get here, have people keep you honest and hold you to account. Your assumptions would be interrogated. So I just think the open-mindedness of it, fits quite nicely. If you're not necessarily that way, I don't know whether you'd have a problem here, but it's something you'd experience time and time again. Just the opportunity to learn professionally, personally, there's so much to take in. Along those lines, the kind of person who wouldn't want to be here, I feel like it's kind of just the opposite of what I've mentioned. If you think that, the MBA experience is just about maybe some courses you want to take, or that you already know everything and are not willing to learn anything. Or if you're, in terms of just the structure of the community being what it is, collaborative, highly networked, highly connected, you could still thrive. I do want to point that you could still thrive if you're somewhat introverted, just kind of like a lone fellow. It's not really about that. You would find the community here, no matter what your preferences, affinity. But I just think the general idea that, you're not open, I think you may struggle a bit, because MIT would expand your perspective, your horizon, and all of the above.
Great, thank you very much for that. And next question, again, still on this topic of culture, talking about the culture and sort of the environment at MIT Sloan for women. Emma and Della, I know you've been involved with swim, so maybe Emma, you can get us started, and then Della, you can chime in as well about sort of the experience as a woman at MIT Sloan.
Well, as a woman at MIT Sloan, I'm very impressed that actually from our day-to-day life, we had some very meaningful discussion about like how women can balance work-life balance, and then how women can do better in their career development. Actually, it's covered in different aspects. Like I'm also a member of SWIM, and we had some discussion, a small group discussions there with other fellow SWIM members, and also there is there is male allies to SWIM. Those are male students who are very concerned about how women can do better in terms of personal life and also professional life. And they have been very supportive, and we had some meaningful discussion too. And when I was doing a course about career development last semester, we also had some cases discussion, and then panelists, those Sloan alum, female alum, and also male alum who graduated a couple of years ago talk about now they have started their own family and how they balance work-life balance. So I think those are very meaningful discussion. And I think I've learned a lot from the discussion itself. Like we don't have a final conclusion, like it's a problem that maybe could never be solved 100%, like how we can actually balance everything, or how we can like ask for a better salary or better working hours as our male counterparts. But I'm very happy that people here are very concerned about this topic. And I believe, time will tell, like if so many people are actively working on this, and then eventually we can find a solution. So I feel really supportive here in general.
Thanks, Emma. Della, do you want to talk a little bit more maybe about SWIM, or Sloan Women in Management, and some of the work that they do for the community?
Sure. So I just would echo a lot of what Emma said. I think obviously I'm biased. I'm part of SWIM leadership, but I think SWIM does a lot of really great programming. It's a huge club on campus, and we do a lot of co-hosted events with other clubs. So some of the events Emma mentioned, like maybe there'll be a female leader in like the finance industry, and SWIM will help co-host that event with a finance related club. So SWIM is definitely very present on campus, as is Male Allies. And I would say outside of the formal structure of SWIM, I've also found allyship at Sloan to be really strong, like male friends who want to make sure that if they have particular contacts in an industry that would be helpful to me, just as Anna said, like Sloanies are always helping Sloanies. But I do feel like the male allyship is really strong, both at a club level and on an individual level. I was on a core team with 5 men and 2 women. Like business school is definitely not perfect. We're all schools, I think, are trying to get closer to parity. But I will say it was a dynamic that in the beginning, our core fellow and some of our advisors warned us, like, make sure that the female voices on your team are heard. And that was just never a problem on our team. And I definitely felt heard and supported by my core team at all times. So yeah, I think also, as Emma said, like, I appreciate our campus willingness to have tough conversations around gender issues in the workplace. SWIM co-hosted this event with the Senate, but we actually didn't have any female candidates for Sloan president this year. And that was a really tough topic because there were some people who were trying to push female senators to apply to be president. They didn't necessarily want to run, but we wanted that representation at the president level. It's a really like challenging conversation, and basically SWIM and Senate said, let's put this out in the open and have this conversation in person. And that was one of the last in-person events before COVID, and I really appreciated the willingness to have a tough conversation.
Great. Yeah, I think the sort of spirit of Sloanies to really sort of have those tough conversations and really push things forward is important. I know, Anna, you are a member of the Senate. Did you want to talk a little bit about how you've seen that in your work on the Senate?
Thanks, Tommaso. First of all, Della, thanks for bringing that up. I do remember being there, and that was one of the last, in-person events we had. And just, to highlight that point, we all approach this, with a great deal of humility. I'm grateful for the openness, because I think a lot of learnings on personal character, leadership, all of that comes, and these are the things that, can't be explained on a brochure, on a website. The idea that other students are bringing perspectives that, one may be blindsided by. I'm personally on the Senate, and I think, it was just important to hear that again and again, representation matters. We need to do more to capture the broader perspective of students. And also just highlighting a bit more on the can-do spirit of Sloanies. In the Senate, we do a lot to support and advance, the experience of Sloan. A couple of you on this call right now may be international students, and you've heard of the STEM certification. The student body was actively involved in that ever since the pandemic became an issue that has disrupted our lives, and I guess the lives of everybody else in the world. We've had students actively voice out how our experience can be shaped in terms of getting feedback to the faculty on how the academic curriculum could be improved, or even shape, voices in how to shape what we would experience and possibly what you would experience, so that your time at Sloan is as, what other word can I use? Beautiful, nice, impactful as possible. So there's just this continuous sense where the school, and I have to thank the school here, being constantly receptive, but the students also taking charge and saying, I think this can be better. I think we can actually explore this alternative route, and not just within the Senate with like the STEM OPT qualification, or with COVID, with multiple other initiatives, other clubs involved, other affinity groups involved in pushing the discussion and experience further.
Great, thank you, Anna. You mentioned obviously COVID-19 and the current pandemic that we're dealing with, and some of the work that the Senate has been doing. We did have a question about, how have you found, the MIT experience during this time over the last couple of months? As many know, in March we pivoted to virtual remote learning. I think certainly been impressed with how active the community has continued to be. Clubs have continued to meet, conferences that have been held. But could one of you maybe talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of the response and sort of how MIT Sloan, how the MIT Sloan experience has been over the last couple of months during this time?
I'm happy to take that. It's been, first of all, I don't think any of us saw it coming, but it's a lot. We've had losses in some way. I'd be completely honest with you. We all come to this experience and we want for something, we look for one particular experience. We want to stay connected in a certain way, take trips together, go to places together. And, you know, some of these things have just been outside our control. And frankly, outside the hands of, you know, MIT as an institution. That being said, I do still find myself extremely connected and plugged in. The lack of, you know, the in-class experience did not inhibit my ability to engage or to learn. And I mean that in every way. I, you know, have made friends in deeper and more meaningful ways during this time. I think the challenges of the pandemic, you know, has brought me to, you know, closer with some of my fellow students in classes, in the work we do that are important to us in the Black Business Students Association, at the Senate, where we're trying to solve some of what we see as the urgent issues students are facing collaboratively with our peers. We're not, you know, the idea of student leadership, you know, comes with a great deal of humility. We're not better than any of these students in any of the things we do. We're just working to see that we are learning from them, representing them, leading them. I do find that, you know, for whatever loss, you know, in-person experience we've, you know, had, in my personal opinion, the connections I've gotten otherwise, you know, are something I could take solace in. You know, I still, you know, crave the idea of, you know, going to a place called La Fabrica to get down and party, but all kinds of things have come as substitutes for that. And I don't know whether I should mention that here. You know, we still have these virtual Zoom sessions where you could just literally, you know, I guess have a drink with someone. But I'm impressed and happy about how we've collectively handled it. I think each student has been extremely supportive. We all still feel very, very, very connected to each other.
Great, thank you, Anna. So just in the interest of time here, as we're nearing the end of the hour, I do want to leave plenty of time to talk about the admissions process. So as we switch over to that, I'm going to ask one final question that I'll have you all sort of think about, and then we'll come back to you at the end here. And that is, if you could summarize your MIT Sloan experience with just one word. So I know it's a tough question, but if you could summarize it with in just one word. You can hyphenate it if you need to get creative here. What would that one word be? So I'll have our panel think about that. Like I said, I do want to spend a little bit of time now talking about the admissions and application process. I know we've received a lot of questions about this in the Q&A, so I'm going to do my best to address these over the next several minutes. So in terms of the application process, as we saw earlier, you're all at different stages of this process. So what I want to do first is just talk a little bit about sort of the process, and then I'll share a little bit about how the admissions committee evaluates applications. So in terms of the process, we are sort of still in the process for the class of 2022 that will begin at MIT Sloan this fall. We have extended our third round deadline, so it is actually extended through June 15th. So we are accepting applications for the MBA program beginning this fall through June 15th. We are accepting those applications and reviewing those applications on a rolling basis. So after you submit your application, you can expect to hear back from us within typically about 2 weeks with sort of next steps with the application. We are still evaluating applications, we are still interviewing candidates, and we are still admitting candidates into the class of 2022 through that extended round 3 process. The process is the same in terms of the application requirements, with one exception, and that is that if you do not have a GMAT or GRE score, obviously we understand that many test centers were closed for a period of time, and are just now, the online exams are just now sort of opening up. So you may apply without a GMAT or GRE score. should the admissions committee, like your application and choose to admit you, you would be admitted on a conditional basis. And the condition would be that you do take those, the GMAT or the GRE, and achieve a minimum score that the admission committee would communicate with you in your decision. So do keep that in mind if you are planning to apply, that one sort of difference there. We do accept the online versions of the GMAT or the GRE, and we will accept those for those who are applying next year as well. And we will view them the same as we view the in-person exams. So there's no disadvantage to taking these online versions of the GMAT or the GRE. So I did want to reassure everyone of that. But let me talk a little bit about what we look for when we review an application. You see the components of the application here on the slides. I won't go through all of them in detail, but I think a couple things that are important to note about the application process at MIT Sloan. As we are evaluating applications, we are looking to evaluate the whole candidate, and we're looking to evaluate a few different primary areas. First is your academic ability. We want to ensure that the students that we are admitting into MIT Sloan are going to be successful in the classroom. And so, there are different pieces of the application that can give us evidence of that, whether it be the test scores, whether it be your academic transcripts, whether it be evidence of more quantitative or analytical work that you've done. These are all data points that the committee will consider in reviewing your academic ability. Secondly, is your professional experience. Certainly, a lot of the experience in the MBA is the dynamic conversations in and out of the classroom, the diverse perspectives from different industries and different work experience that you and your peers bring to the program. So, we are looking to evaluate your professional experience. There was a question about sort of, the diversity of professional and academic backgrounds. We're MIT, we're often sort of obviously sort of known as an engineering school. That doesn't mean that we're only looking for engineers for the MBA program. We want students from various different academic backgrounds and professional backgrounds. What's important in looking at your professional experience is that you have demonstrated the ability to make an impact in your organization, in your team, in your work experience, that you have gone above and beyond the minimum expectations of your role, right? So we're looking for you to share evidence of that. We're looking to your recommenders to share evidence of that. We're looking to see how you've progressed in your role, whatever that role may look like. And then finally, the sort of third area that we're looking at as we review applications are the personal attributes. We've talked a lot about culture here during our conversation today with our students, and that's incredibly important to us, and to create an environment with that collaborative culture. We look to identify students or applicants rather that have demonstrated the ability to work well collaboratively, who've demonstrated the ability to lead among their peers, who have demonstrated again that sort of orientation towards impact and leaving things better than they found them, right? Again, we're not looking for everyone to necessarily be involved in the same things or to bring the same aspect of their background or culture to the program, but we want to really pay attention to those personal attributes as we review the application as well. So throughout your application, we're looking for evidence across all of these sort of areas. In terms of some tips on some of the particular pieces of the application that often receive questions, as you think about the cover letter, the cover letter, comes along with your resume, and it's an opportunity for you to really make your case to the admissions committee. Help us understand why you feel you're qualified for the MBA. Highlight some of those experiences that you've had where you have made an impact, where you have sort of gone above and beyond. And also help sort of tie that together with a little bit about sort of how that fits into your goals for the MBA. You don't need to be very specific about your post-MBA goals. We're not evaluating what you say you're going to do after you graduate, as Emma can attest. And no one asks you when you graduate if you're doing what you said you were going to do when you applied. Certainly we want to understand that you've done your research and that you have a clear idea of what you look to get out of the MBA, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a concrete career goal. The organizational chart. We're not evaluating the organizational chart. We are using that as a tool to better understand the context of your role within your organization. We have applicants coming to us from all sorts of different industries, different organizations all over the world. So oftentimes a resume and a title doesn't give us the full picture of where you might fit within that organization, what those opportunities for impact are. So the organizational chart just helps us understand that. We're not, I often get the question of, I'm an entrepreneur, or I work in a startup, and there's only going to be 3 boxes on my organizational chart. Is that bad? No, if that's what your organization looks like, that's what we want to see. So we're not counting the boxes and using that to determine how strong of a candidate you are. Again, it's just a piece of context as we look at the rest of the application. We do only require 1 letter of recommendation, and then you are asked to submit 2 additional references, names of additional professional references that we can reach out to if we have further questions. Your recommendation should hopefully be coming from your current supervisor. Certainly we recognize that sometimes that may not be a good idea for a variety of reasons. And so, if you choose not to use your direct supervisor, it should still be someone who can speak to you, your professional experience, speak to that professional context in, sort of recent, maybe the last 2 to 3 years there. And then finally, the 60-second video statement, one of my favorite pieces of reviewing the application. It's your opportunity to really share a little bit more about who you are. I think much of the application focuses on the professional side of things and the academic side of things. This is really where you can talk a little bit more about your interests, your hobbies, the things that you like to do in your free time. If you are introducing yourself to your classmates, what would you want them to know about you? And so use it wisely. Don't use it to rehash and reiterate what we already know on your resume. Share something new, share something a little bit more personal as a way for the admissions committee to get to know you. After reviewing the written application, a subset of applicants will be invited to interview. The interviews are conducted by the admissions committee, and the interviewer will have reviewed your application. So they're able to sort of dive in and sort of follow up on any question marks that we have from reviewing your application, spend a little bit more time talking about why you're interested in that MBA and why you're interested in MIT Sloan. So be prepared for that. In terms of the deadlines, so obviously, as I said, we're still kind of wrapping up this year's cycle. So we have not yet announced our new deadlines for next year. However, I do expect them to be similar to last year's deadline. So you can expect a round 1 deadline for the MBA, as well as LGO to be in early October. You can expect a second round deadline for LGO to be in early December and for MBA to be in mid-January, and you can expect a third round deadline in early April. We will announce the new deadlines. We will announce the new application over the summer, probably sometime in July, so stay tuned for that. I don't expect any major changes to our application for the coming year. There have been a lot of questions in the chat about how the process may change because of the COVID-19 situation that we're in. Again, I don't expect any major changes in terms of what we will be looking for in our candidates next year in terms of the type of class or size of class that we plan to enroll next year. But more details will be shared over the summer as we launch the new application. Finally, there were several questions around financial aid. So at MIT Sloan, all applicants are automatically considered for merit-based fellowships. There is no separate application for those. As we review your application, we, as the admissions committee, for those who we admit, we will review each of those candidates for merit fellowships as well. If you do receive any merit-based fellowship funding, that would be awarded at the time of your admission. So it's important to know that there's no separate step to that. There are a few unique scholarships and fellowships that do require separate applications, and you can find more details about those on our website, and they'll be shared during the application process as well. So again, just being conscious of time here, I know we're running right down to the wire. So I want to just circle back to our panel and just ask you briefly to just share that one word that you would use to summarize your MIT Sloan experience. And so we'll start with Emma.
Yeah, sure. I would say amazing. Classmates are amazing, faculties are amazing. And then activities are amazing. Also, the learning experience is amazing.
Great. Harry.
I'm going to say experimental. I'm getting try a lot of new things and really enjoying it.
Great, thank you. Anna.
I would just say inspiring. I'm constantly inspired by the people here, and what they do, and what they say, and how they are, and the lives they live, small and large ways, big and small things.
Great, and finally, Della.
I would say empowering. I think the confidence that I've gained just from even 1 year of the program, and just how supported I feel by my peers and faculty and the whole program. It's been a very empowering experience.
Great. Well, I think I first and foremost want to say thank you to each of our panelists for joining us on this Friday morning. Your insights and your experiences that you've shared have been really great to hear, and I hope helpful for all of our attendees to hear their experiences and to hear a little bit about MIT Sloan, the culture, and what makes it such a special place. We thank you so much for joining us today. We hope, again, that you have found this helpful, and we hope that you'll stay connected with us as you continue to navigate your application process. We will have plenty of events throughout the rest of the summer. We'll be adding those to our website over the course of the next few weeks. You can expect emails about upcoming events throughout the summer for those of you who are applying next year. We encourage you to attend as many as you can, to stay engaged with us, to reach out to us if you do have any questions, specific individual questions about your application. Please feel free to do so. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again at a future event, and we look forward to reviewing all of your applications. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.